So let's get started, and I'd like to invite up a judge from Division I to come up and say a couple words and announce the Division I champion.
Hello everyone, my name is Devereaux Evans and I was a judge for Division I. We saw many very well put together presentations by students, intelligent students with fascinating ideas. The amount of preparation and hard work put into it was apparent in both the actual presentation, the delivery of that, as well as the business plans we reviewed beforehand. And without further ado, I'd like to announce the divisional champion of Division I, and that was ChemiCube from Merrimack High School. Congratulations.
Are any of these three good to use?
Yep, any of the microphones.
Test. Hello everyone, my name is Matt Patel.
And my name is Emily Duval.
And this is our business, ChemiCube LLC.
Meet Sarah and Mr. Mueller. Sarah is a high school chemistry student, and Mr. Mueller is her teacher. Both of them spend a significant amount of time measuring out the solutions that they need for chemistry labs in class. For Sarah, this means she's spending a lot of time maybe measuring out exactly 10 milliliters of this solution and then 5 milliliters of that solution to mix them together. But then she needs to repeat that for several trials, and this takes up a lot of lab time. For Mr. Mueller, this means he may have to set up for his class labs, either filling up dozens of dropper bottles or diluting stock solutions so that it's safe for his students to use. And this cuts away from the time either for Sarah spent learning what's actually going on in the lab, or for Mr. Mueller, either grading papers or helping his students. And they're not the only ones that face this issue. When we did a survey of 8 different high schools with 12 different chemistry teachers, we found that all of the teachers agreed that most labs require the measurement of solutions. And on average, 28% of lab time is spent setting up. That's almost a third of lab time. In addition, 88% of schools use these inaccurate 100 milliliter graduated cylinders. So even after Sarah, Mr. Mueller, and others take all the time to measure out their solutions, this equipment often renders their data inaccurate, which can be very frustrating for both students and teachers. So after discovering this problem, we asked ourselves, how might we help high school chemistry students and their teachers to maximize their accuracy during labs while minimizing the time it takes to measure their solutions?
After 9 months of development, countless prototypes, and many hours of testing, we are proud to present the ChemiCube. The ChemiCube is a 3-pump chemical pumping system that is designed for use in high school chemistry classes. Not only is the device significantly faster than current techniques, it is also much more accurate. And in fact, it is accurate to 47 thousandths of a milliliter, which in a head-to-head trial was 84% more accurate than an experienced chemist using the current measurement techniques. So now I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to give a nice live demonstration to our judges up front here and show them how it would work in a class. So here we have this blue solution, which is just the solution we're going to use in our lab today. So the first thing I'm going to do is take an input hose and place it into this blue solution. Let me just move this closer. Place it into the blue solution. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the joystick, and you can see the user interface up there, to select which pump I'm using. In this case, it's pump 1, just happens to be that. And then I'm going to use this whiteboard marker and the built-in whiteboard material to label the chemical I'm using. In this case, H2O. Next, I'm going to prime this tube with the chemical I'm using. So I'll scroll down to select the prime function. And then, let's see, I'll just press the green button to go. But wait, the system just displayed a warning message saying that the hosing I'm trying to use is still connected to the system. So we actually have a magnetic safety interlock system on the front here that makes sure that you can't pump out of the device unless if the tubing is disconnected. So once I disconnect the tubing, the system's fine, the error goes away, then I can press the prime button. You'll now see the fluid traveling in the input hose through the device, and then eventually it will come out this output hose into the speaker here. So it's just a little over a tube length to ensure that the system is completely primed. Now I can select the exact volume that I want to dispense. So let's say in this case it's 3.1 milliliters. Then let me use my other hand here. I'll press the green button, and you see very quickly we have dispensed exactly 3.1 milliliters, accurate to 47 thousandths of a milliliter. And when it's time to clean up the system, all you have to do is put distilled water in the back here and then use the built-in cleanse function, and very quickly it'll be ready for use with the next chemical. So the magic sauce inside this machine that makes it work is an innovative encoder system that we developed specifically for peristaltic pumps. Now, what is a peristaltic pump? Well, if you look in the bottom left there, it is essentially a system that has 3 different cylinders, and then the tubing runs around those cylinders. So when the cylinders rotate, they sort of push the tubing, they push the fluid through the tube. So normally these pumps aren't the most accurate thing in the world. And I won't get into the technical details, but with our encoder system, we've made them very accurate. So here's some graphs and data that back up those claims. So in the upper left, you can see that is the standard deviation versus time of a peristaltic pump without our encoder system. And essentially all that means is it's getting more inaccurate as you pump for longer, which is basically makes it useless for a chemistry class. And then in the upper right, you see the exact same test repeated, but this time with our encoder system. And you can see that our standard deviation is not only minimal, but also very constant, meaning we are both accurate and precise. Lastly, on the bottom here, you see that we attempted to pump 5, 10, and 15 milliliters, and we essentially nailed that volume on the nose every single time. In addition to writing over 500 lines of code, designing our own circuit board, which you can see in front of you, and the encoder system, we also included 3 unique functions. We have pumping. So if you just have 3 chemicals you're using in the lab that day, you just set them up on the system, and then a student can come by and press the button once for each chemical, and then you're basically all good to go for your lab in a matter of seconds instead of 45 minutes to an hour. Next, we have dilution. So typically, teachers receive very concentrated stock solutions from chemical supply companies. But with the ChemiCube, you can put the stock solution on one pump, distilled water on the other, and then input in the concentration you want, and it'll perform all of the calculation and measurements required to create that diluted solution for you. Lastly, we have titration. So typically, when you do a titration, use this, which is a burette. And it's very tedious to use. If you've ever taken chemistry, you'll know that. You have to twist this knob right here very quickly to get very exact amounts. And it's very easy to overshoot what you're going for. But with the ChemiCube in titration mode, all you have to do is touch the joystick and it dispenses exactly 50 thousandths of a milliliter. And it keeps track of the total amount that you've dispensed as well. So it effectively replaces this instrument and makes it much more engaging for a student.
ChemiCube has gained a lot of traction over the past few months, and that's because people are starting to notice our product and they're getting really excited about it. So here on the left, you can see Matt and his lab partner Sarah, who couldn't be here today, at the New Hampshire Science and Engineering Expo. After performing well there, they advanced to the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair in Phoenix, Arizona, where they placed second in the world in their category of embedded systems. Both of these accomplishments prove that ChemiCube is not just a prototype, it's not just an idea, it's here and it's very feasible. They also attended the National Writers Association conference at Boston University, where we had the chance to network with business executives as well as local media outlets to help share our story. And finally, we've partnered with a local tech company, Nanocomp Technologies, based in Nashua, New Hampshire, because they're interested in testing our prototype in a professional lab setting. So our target market is high schools and high school chemistry teachers. We know that our target market is large because 70% of high school graduates took chemistry in 2009 as a result of having 30 to 40,000 high school teachers. Additionally, in our survey, we found that 100% of the teachers we talked to would be willing to implement a pumping-based system like ChemiCube into their classroom. We hope to reach these people through expanding our social media, building our website, as well as continuing to network and get into local news avenues. Finally, we plan to pursue partnerships with scientific catalogs, such as Flynn Scientific as an example, because this is how chemistry teachers see their lab equipment, and that's where they order it from.
So throughout this entire process, we stayed in touch with Soft Robotics, which is a tech company in Cambridge, Mass., and Nanocomp Technologies, which Emily just mentioned. And we talked to them and we asked, how do professionals currently make these very accurate measurements in the industry? And we sort of they helped us compare the ChemiCube to those methods. So we broke up our competition into 3 general categories. The first one is a non-electric dispensing system. Now essentially all this would be is a little thing you put on top of a stock solution bottle, and every time you press it, it gives you one single volume of that liquid. So these devices cost about $300 each, so to have be able to do 3 chemicals like the ChemiCube, you need 3 of them, so that's 900. And then for every different volume you want, you would need a completely separate device. So that's 900 times the amount of volumes you want, which clearly multiplies out of control and is not fiscally possible for any high school. Next, we have the rate-based peristaltic pump. So like the ChemiCube, it uses peristaltic pumps, but it pumps for a set rate, not a set volume like the ChemiCube. So if you want a set volume like you would always want in chemistry, you would need to measure out the solution that it's pumping or measure the time it's pumping for, both of which are very prone to human error. Furthermore, this system costs $1,000 per pump, meaning $3,000 for a ChemiCube equivalent. Lastly, you have syringe-based pumps. These devices are very tedious to use because every time you have to load a very small amount of solution into the syringe, which is then driven by a motor. So they cost $3,000 per pump, meaning $9,000 for a ChemiCube equivalent. And since they're so tedious to use, they're potentially even less efficient than the current inaccurate measurement techniques. And lastly, we've designed ChemiCube so it fulfills all 5 of these categories.
As we move forward, our next step is to transition out of this prototype phase by improving our manufacturing and implementing a more professional design so we can have a more professional product. Here on the left, you see pictures of the circuit boards that we currently assemble ourselves. Judges, you have one on your table. And on the right, we have a CAD model of an enclosure system that we could have professionally manufactured. By streamlining our process, instead of making all of the parts ourselves using our high school's tools, it would be a lot more cost-effective and it would save us a lot of time as well. So here we have the breakdown of the material cost for what it takes to make a single ChemiCube. And you can see at the bottom that that's about $168 per cube. We hope to lower this, and we know that we can do this by buying in large quantities as well as buying directly from the manufacturers. So we're here seeking funding to help us do so. And on the left, we have our current revenue model. You can see the cost breakdown. So right now, the price of one ChemiCube is $400. So think back to our competition. That's much more affordable, especially for a high school. And we picked that price strategically because we knew we wanted to take $200 for the combined cost of materials and labor to invest directly into making the next prototype, and then leave $100 over each for research and competitions, as well as investing in STEM education, which Matt will talk about in a minute. So on the right, we have what we would like to move towards in the future. And we want to move the price down from $400 to $300 to make it more affordable for high school teachers. Because in the survey that we said, they had about $250 was the number that they said they would be willing to pay for a cube. So by bringing our price from $400 to $300, we're making it more affordable to them and opening up our options even further. So here you can see we hope to bring our labor and material costs down to about $120, again by buying either larger quantities or buying directly from manufacturers in the future. And ChemiCube has already been successful in raising revenue. We've already brought in over $3,000 from winning competitions as well as selling prototypes, and we know there's much potential for expansion. So if we sold only a single unit to each high school, there's the potential to bring in about $76,000 of revenue just in New Hampshire and $15 million for the USA. However, note that most high schools have multiple chemistry teachers and concurrent chemistry classes, meaning that it's more than likely that they'll buy more than one cube. So these numbers could double or even triple. They could increase dramatically.
So not only do we bring you a very functional product today, we bring you a very skilled team. So Emily brings a lot to the business side of this whole equation. She has design thinking experience, entrepreneurial knowledge, she's detail-oriented, organized, and she clearly has academic excellence as the salutatorian of our class.
And Matt is also a key asset to our team. He started this whole thing and he's been driving it really hard. He's very dedicated. He's analytical, he's a problem solver, and he has robotics experience as the captain of our robotics team. They did really well this year. He also has extensive knowledge in programming, and he pursues academic excellence as the valedictorian of our class.
We also have a third member of our team who couldn't be here today. Her name is Sarah Mason. She really works on the chemistry side of this whole thing. She performs all the lab testing for us, and she really makes sure that the ChemiCube is a really good fit for not just chemistry labs, but any lab we might expand into in the future.
So we're here today looking for more connections, more resources. We're looking for mentors who know sales, maybe manufacturing, to help us get to the point where we want, where we can streamline our product and manufacture it professionally. And we're also seeking additional funding, as I mentioned before, so that we can help lower our material costs and really get the ball rolling even further.
So the last thing we want to leave you with today is that ChemiCube is much more than a device that can just improve the numbers of your classroom, like save you an hour here and there, make your lab this much more efficient. But there's something that's non-quantifiable about this whole thing, and that is our impact. So we've already gotten a lot of feedback from the schools that we've sold prototypes to so far that we should sell this as a kit. And that really resonated with us because if you sell this unit as a kit, then a student could learn how to assemble it using our manufacturing instructions, and then they learn electrical engineering, and then they feel as though they've contributed something to their school's chemistry class when the device is done. We've also taken a fair chunk of our revenue and invested it into a local STEM club where we purchased Arduino kits and had people teach the students the basics of electrical engineering and software engineering. And lastly, we traveled to local elementary schools where we talked about how electrical engineering and entrepreneurship, if applied correctly, can truly change the world that we live in.
And with that, I'm Emily,
And I'm Matt.
and we are ChemiCube.
Thank you for
Thank you
We
for your
welcome
time.
any questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
I was wondering, when you set up the cube, do you have to, sorry, when you actually set up the cube, do you have to have special designations for your 3 tubes? Are you at risk of any kind of cross-contamination or anything like that?
So we've done some tests of the actual chemical compatibility of the tubing material itself. With silicon, we didn't see any corrosion over a 24-hour period using the concentrations of acids and bases you would commonly see in a high school lab. But as we told our judges in the last session, we are looking to move towards Viton tubing as we go for more professional manufacturing, which is slightly more expensive, but it's known as one of the most flexible and chemically resistant plastics in the world. So if we move towards that, we would not see any sort of contamination problems, and they could be easily cleaned with the distilled water we described.
High school students are known sometimes to be a little clumsy. If I were to kick that over and have it land on a cement floor, what's the durability of this product?
Yeah, so the tubing is designed, it runs by a vacuum. So if you were to hold that tube upside down, nothing would come out of it. You could shake it a little bit, nothing would come out of it. So it is very safe, and we have tested that in the classroom as well.
As far as the durability of the enclosure itself goes, currently it's acrylic because it's very easy to laser cut and it's great for prototypes, but it is quite shatter prone. So I would say there is a risk for damage of the enclosure. But again, as we move forward, we would like to have a molded enclosure which will allow us to use a plastic like ABS, which is much more flexible and resistant to shattering.
As far as your decision to market to high schools first, it's, selling into the education system can be difficult sometimes. So at this price point, can you actually sell directly to the teacher, or do you have to go through, approvals through the budgeting process and stuff like that, just, from a time perspective?
So very good question. The short answer is it depends. From school to school, what the structure is. A lot of times in private schools, almost every purchase above $100 needs to be approved by a board of some kind. In larger public schools, science teachers typically have a discretionary budget that they can use to buy whatever instruments or materials they need for their class. So that is how schools have purchased our units already. We haven't gone through much bureaucracy as far as school boards or anything goes, because since it's less than $500, which seems to be a very common cutoff point, we seem to be able to sneak around that bureaucracy and go straight into that discretionary fund of the science teachers.
And additionally, we had mentioned we're interested in partnering with scientific catalogs. So say a teacher at the end of the year runs out of these graduated cylinders, or some shatter, some break, maybe he needs more burettes too. If the ChemiCube is in that catalog, why would you want to buy however many more of those when it's cheaper to buy our product, when it's more efficient and it's faster and you can use it for more students at one time? So that would be a real big advantage if we could get involved in one of those as well.
So why aren't you also going after some of those competitors you said that are $3,000 per pop, $1,000 per pop? Why aren't you attacking that market as well?
So
or why aren't
that,
you planning maybe?
We definitely could attack that market in the future. For the time being, we wanted to stick at something we know we could be the best at, which was high school chemistry labs. One of the biggest problems with getting into that market is a lot of the people who buy those pumps aren't afraid to pay $9,000 to guarantee that they get that 3 millionth of a milliliter precision that they need, because they have huge grants from their institutions to buy these things. So unfortunately in this market, the price almost dictates the quality of the instrument in many people's minds. So our low price might actually make us seem undesirable to those very fancy labs. So we really wanted to go for the more, on the consumer side of the market, to those high school teachers before we go for those professional chemistry labs.
Though we have talked to a few people who were interested, like when we went to soft robotics, one guy said, well, when I was an undergrad working in a lab for my work study, they made me dilute all these stock solutions and it was really tedious. Why didn't I have that there? So there is that potential to maybe go down that road later down the road, but as Matt mentioned, right now we want to focus on what we know best.
Also, one really quick thing I wanted to mention is that instead of going into professional chemistry labs, likely our next step will be another step in the consumer direction where we've gotten a lot of requests saying, wait a second, could this thing mix drinks? Or, that's always a funny one. Or could it, a common one is at pharmacies. I did not know this until I talked to a pharmacist, but they actually have to mix the solutions of cough syrups on the spot if you're going to get a cough syrup at the pharmacy. And they use graduated cylinders just like that. We have a friend who works there, and it's horrible. So this could easily go into an application like that where that extreme purity and extreme precision and those huge price points aren't there.
Is there a safety play where you can go to the high school and say this is safer to use than the graduated cylinders? And isn't that something you could use to really promote the product?
Yes, so currently with a graduated cylinder, if you're ever pouring it into a beaker, there's obviously a lot of risk of that fluid sort of flowing onto your hands. And as I demonstrated, the safety features really keep you from doing anything too stupid with it. There's always the risk with chemicals, but it eliminates a lot of the intermittent pouring processes. So I would definitely say that there would be a play there to market it as a safety instrument. So thank you for that suggestion.
All right, thank you for your
Thank you.
time.